You are listening to the Disney Dream Girls, an unofficial Disney Theme Parks podcast. And this is show number 498 for Sunday, the 14th of April, 2024.
Where dreams begin.
Hello there, my name is Michelle Young, and together with my jolly good chum Jane Phipps, we are your guides to the place where dreams begin. Hello there, Janie.
Hello there, Michelle.
And how are we?
Well, I'm very well, but I feel like I should be jet lagged or something.
Jet lagged?
But, well, you know, because I've been travelling.
Jane's been away. Jane has been to Amsterdam, where they make hamster jam. Or I used to think when I was a child, Mum, why are you going to Amsterdam? Is that an actual place? What are you on about, Michelle? It's Amsterdam, not hamster jam.
I will make a point of not having any hamster jam because that sounds very wrong on many levels.
Absolutely. Maybe it was something connected to my brother having a hamster and we found him in not a very good condition one day. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But it was the song "And Tulips from Hamster Jam." And I just had this weird, I had a very weird childhood. Is this therapy time, Jane?
I think it's turning into it, Michelle. Yeah, shall we move on quickly?
Shall we get onto a Disney podcast, Jane?
Oh, that might be a good idea, Michelle.
Good idea. So on last week's show, 497, we mentioned about a Disney Silly Symphony for the Ugly Duckling. Well, we have another one for on this day, 14th of April 1934, and The Big Bad Wolf was released. And to be quite honest, as a English teacher, I use the story of Little Red Riding Hood all the time because it's that classic good versus evil, and the kids really like writing it from the viewpoint of the misunderstood big bad wolf. So that sort of found interest in me a little bit. And on this day, 1961, Robert Carlyle was born in Scotland. Can you remember who he played in Once Upon a Time?
No.
He played the role of Rumpelstiltskin, and his aliases Mr. Gold and Detective Weaver, and that was on the ABC show.
You know why I didn't remember who he played?
Go on.
Because I didn't watch it.
I started off watching it and then I got completely lost. I think it just got a little bit too complicated for me.
That's probably one I won't be going looking for then.
Yeah, maybe not. I think, to be honest, it's probably a series that will show its age. And talking of showing its age, I had a conversation with a friend the other day about some Disney films that do show its age, because my friend David got in touch and said about one of our dinosaurs is missing. And he said, and you mentioned it on the podcast. And I'd never seen it, so I told him to go and watch it, but beware, it holds up nearly as well as Jason and the Argonauts.
Yeah, I think this is something you have to bear in mind when you're watching something from, 60s and 70s. It's CGI hadn't been invented back then, guys. So some things don't look quite as smooth as you'd expect to see nowadays. But I love that. I think it adds to the charm.
I know, but you put on something like Jason and the Argonauts for my kids and it's like, really? Really? Although I'm currently rewatching Doctor Who from its reincarnation on the BBC, and I think we're nearly on season 3. But looking at some of that, oh my word, bizarre. Right, now we've finished our little digression and we was talking about our Disney history many, many, many years ago. Bit of an end of an era. Ollie Johnston. You don't even need to mention about his Disney credits, include such classic features as my much beloved Snow White, all the way through to The Rescuers, Hot Fox in the Hound. He had a passion that he shared with Walt on trains. Passed away at the age of 95 in 2008.
You know, there's quite a lot of Imagineers that pass away at very good ages. Obviously, being imaginative and creative must be good for the soul.
I think it is doing something in your life that is a passion and keeping active rather than just sitting around and doing diddly squat. It's obviously good for you. So maybe we should keep podcasting into our 90s, Jane.
I hope so, Michelle. That would be good, wouldn't it?
Well, it would.
Still waffling on about Disney in our 80s. Yeah, I like the sound of that.
Still actually able to go to the theme parks in our 80s and afford it would be good.
Who knows? Never say never, Michelle.
So this week we have a bonkers idea that we came up with when we met up the other week in person, and we thought we'd have a discussion on the stupidest ideas we ever had connected to our Disney trips. And I've got a bit of a list from me, and I've got a little bit of a list from Jane, and this is probably going to be some stories that you probably won't have heard about before. And we'd also invite you to get in touch with us, info@disneydreamgirls.com, or via the family page, Disney Dream Girls Podcast Family, on Facebook, and let us know some of the crazy ideas that you had that was physically, stretching you a little bit when it's connected to your Disney trip. So, Jane, would you like to share your first idea?
Well, I'm going to talk about a recent one. And it's kind of Disney, but it is Disney, but it's not Disney. So flashback to September last year. Disney cruise. That's the Disney connection. And our last port of call was in a lovely place in Norway called Mekjavik. We should have been going into Stavanger, but because of the size of port, etc., we were kind of in this industrial port. So we looked at the port excursions and we went, oh, look, there's a hike to a place called called Pulpit Rock. That would be something different to do. A place we've never been. It all sounded idyllic because it's a hike, Michelle. I mean, Simon and I do an awful lot of walking.
Yeah.
We walk anything between 3 and 5 miles per day, every day of the week. So a hike to me didn't sound that arduous. Oh, how wrong I was. It was not a hike. It was a mountain scramble. Shush. Put it this way, fellow listeners. It was so bad that when we finally got down from this hike, both Simon and I ate carbs. Now, if anybody knows us, we do not eat carbs of any stretch of the imagination. But oh my God, it was right. We're eating carbs to assuage what we've just been through. I mean, don't get me wrong, guys. If you get a chance to go up to Pulpit Rock, it is an amazing experience. The views are astounding. We had perfect weather. It was clear blue skies. It was phenomenal. And anybody that goes, well, what is Pulpit Rock? If it's one of the Mission Impossible 6, is it? There's a scene with Henry Cavill and Tom Cruise, and it's this like flat piece of rock that juts out from a mountainside. The height up didn't particularly bother me. It was actually the fact that the rocks that we were walking over or scrambling over were just so ferocious, and there was no particularly clear path. But then, and I know I was a tourist when I say this, it was full of tourists. And when I say full of tourists, what I mean is it was as busy walking along a path that was no wider than maybe 2 people wide. It was as busy as walking around, say, the Magic Kingdom on Christmas Day.
Wow.
Or on Easter. It was that busy that you were having to watch not only what you were doing, but what everybody else was doing. And there were kids that were like 8 or 10 years old just dashing in and out. And I'm thinking, if you knock me over, I'm going to come a cropper and hurt myself. So it all kind of led to this very traumatic experience. So that was a silly thing that Jane and Simon decided to do, and it resulted in too many carbs being eaten.
I remember you sharing the pictures, and it looked like you were climbing up the north face of the Eiger. But, the view was fantabulous.
It was.
I just think, well, I'm going to keep on the same sort of pitch as you there, Jane, about eating carbs. And the craziest thing that I did on my last trip was track down everywhere that had bread pudding on its menu.
Yes.
And then progressed to eat everything bread pudding based in Walt Disney World. I think I ended up eating 7 different types of bread pudding, and I haven't eaten bread pudding since.
Has it put you off?
It's put me off just a teeny tad, Jane. But saying that, this next coming Disney trip, oh my word, I've gone and done it again, and I'm having a pancake challenge. So, yeah.
Oh, Jane shakes head and thinks, will Michelle never learn?
Yeah, but I've got a partner in crime this time. Last time I was pretty much solo. This time, my friend Caroline and I have got a plan, and we are going to carb share. So we'll order one serving and we'll share. So we'll talk more about that later. Anyway, Jane, next one.
Well, I'm going to keep it carby related then, and food related. This is doing the kitchen sink. Now, whether it was silly or not, I don't know. We actually kind of tackled it quite well. You were there, actually. Were you not present when we did the kitchen sink?
I do remember at the time going back and forth to the toilet to try and dry out my clothing, because we had just gone through a torrential 3 p.m. rainstorm. Shall
we combine this with the other silly thing that, because they're kind of interlink, that we seem to end up doing? We love playing miniature golf. Mm-hmm. Love a bit of crazy golf, as we call it in the UK. We have a habit of doing miniature golf in Disney World in the middle of thunderstorms. That idea of having something metal in one's hand when there's lightning going around doesn't seem to compute very well. I think that the time that we actually played, when we saw you guys and we did the kitchen sink, prior to doing the kitchen sink, we had been over at Fantasia Gardens playing miniature golf. We actually had to leave the course at one point because they wouldn't let us continue, because literally rain stopped play. I remember sitting there with kind of trying to keep a raincoat over me, trying to keep dry, because we were just sat under like a little covered over area. It didn't work very well, and then we ended up walking over to meet you and Tom, and I just remember walking around the boardwalk area and the yacht and beach club, and there was just puddles that were completely the width of the pavements, and I just seem to remember going, well, we've got to walk through it. There was nothing else we could do. We tried to keep out of the water as much as possible, and then into an air-conditioned diner to eat the kitchen sink. Like you say, it was like, switch the air conditioning off. I kind of wanted to dry my clothes out, but I'm getting really cold now. And we did enjoy the kitchen sink. We tackled it well because there was the 4 of us. Mm. I don't seem to remember eating an awful lot of it. I blame Ethan, my son. I'm sure he ate the vast majority of it. And anybody that knows Ethan, he's 6'2", size 12, 13 shoes. Yeah, he could eat for England, so to speak.
And he did. Yeah.
And he did, and I got very little looking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So mini golf in the rain, puddles, and kitchen sink. Can I just do another silly one?
Go on.
To tie in with the puddle aspect. We were there in 2008. We actually had a 3-week vacation in Disney World, and unfortunately for us, we had the remnants, but we had a tropical storm. It never developed into a hurricane or anything like that. But we had about 5 or 6 days of really gloomy, overcast, extremely hot, humid weather, because this is talking August time. So the temperatures were up, but it was great, and it was very, very wet. I remember sitting next to the World Showcase Lagoon at the Mexico Pavilion at the fast food, and I can't remember the name of it. I'm sure you'll remember the name, Michelle. And we were carrying under an umbrella trying to eat our food and keep it dry. That was a mistake. We had ducks that were swimming in the water around us because the water had got that deep. We tried to make a bolt for the Mexico Pavilion, but it was just too crowded. So we decided we would just walk somewhere. And as we walked, the rain eased off. So we headed for the American Pavilion. We thought we'll go in there and dry off and see the show, which we did do. But I felt really awful because all we did was we'd walk somewhere, we'd stand, bear in mind there's 4 of us, we would drip, we'd look down, see that we'd left a little pool of water, and then move somewhere else. And we did that on repeat until the show opened. We got in and it was lovely. We sat down and everything. And it wasn't until we were getting up that I suddenly realised that the seats that we were getting up from had absorbed all the water that was on our bodies and on our clothes, which was great for us. It kind of, it soaked all that water out of us, but kind of left 4 very damp, nay, wet seats for the next people. So whoever sat in those seats in 2008, August, I can't remember the date exactly, I apologise now. It was our fault. So there you go. So water, golf, food, and more water.
And what has ever gone wrong with holding a great big metal lightning conductor in Orlando in a rainstorm, Jane?
To be fair, we didn't have brollies with us. We just survived with raincoats at that point. We actually had our own raincoats with us, I will admit that. But yeah, there was one point when we were standing underneath the table with the umbrella, the parasol on top, and you are thinking, yeah, are we just priming ourselves as and it was really, the storm at the time, it was middle of the afternoon. It came over to the point that lights went on because it got that dark. And it was a little bit like the storm was proper over our heads. It was proper noisy. Oh. So a good memory in the, these things, as we're joking about them, but at least they're memories that stay with you, and it gives you something to reminisce about.
Okay. Mine I'm going to mention is an example of Michelle not doing the research and it turning out to be, oh my word, why didn't I do the research? Which is probably why I do a lot of research now about anything prior to doing it. We had been a fair few times to Typhoon Lagoon and enjoyed it, but we were going to go to Blizzard Beach, and I'd never been before. I had just recently gone through all of that massive weight loss that I had, and I was looking pretty good with my little tankini on, and nice and dinky. And I said to Tom, "Oh, I'm going to go on that slide over there." And I said, "Are you coming with me?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, are you going to take a picture from the bottom then?" "Yeah, sure, off you go." And as I were going up the stairs, there were all these really beefy guys with the big muscles and all the ink showing, the muscles off and everything. I'm thinking, there's not a lot of girlies on this attraction. I wonder why. After I got down to the bottom of Summit Plummet, I kind of realised why. It is 120 feet. That is 36.6 metres tall. You reach up to speeds of 60 miles per hour as you descend it. It's the 3rd tallest and fastest 3-fall slide in the world. And it is one of the highest and fastest water slides on Earth. And this dingbat went down it.
Did you have a good time?
Well, I giggled eventually, but all I will say is maybe not wearing a tankini is a good idea. I suggest if you are going to plan on going on this particular Blizzard Beach water-based attraction, that you wear sort of like a scuba suit to sort of like minimise the issue of riding up of the old tankini bottoms and the riding up of the tankini top. And what makes it even worse, there's a there was a photo pass photographer taking pictures as you descend, unable to move your arms to pull down your swimsuit.
Yes, it's not the ride to do if you're worried about modesty at all, is it?
It's not the ride to do, full stop, end of discussion, unless you have got a death wish. And now I understand why Tom said no. He'd been to Blizzard Beach before on prior trips before we met, and now I understand it. So, yes, thank you for that. I now am researching everything. And if it looks like it's a nice tame spinning teacup ride, I will still get on the phone and look up on Google just to make sure there isn't a hidden drop or it rotates at 9 million mile an hour.
It may have been a silly experience, but you've learned from it, and it has now helped you in future vacations.
Hey, yeah, okay. Let's move on, and we'll take another one from you, my love.
I've got another one, and it involves water again. I don't know what it is with me. Both of us now with water.
Yeah.
This was, oh crikey, 2004. We were very fortunate to be visiting Disney World at the very late November into early December, which was great for me because it meant that we were there for my birthday.
Aww.
And on my birthday, we decided to go to Animal Kingdom in the morning.
Nice.
We were having like a little half-day park because that evening we were going to Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party. So we headed to Animal Kingdom, and we went with the we knew what we were going. I think it might have been our second visit there that vacation. And we knew we'd be riding Kali River Rapids. Let's see where this is going, can't you? And Simon was very adamant that he was going to take his board shorts with him to get changed into so that he didn't get soaked through. And I'm like, no, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah, that was famous last words, wasn't it? I was the person that was sat in the position. You know, there's one position where you can be where the water just seems to come over the top of your head and everything gets wet. That was me on my birthday. Simon, hardly a drop. Me, wet through. And of course, it was like, you know, that element of like, I wouldn't say I told you so, but there was this little bit of like, well, that's why I decided to do what I was doing. And I was like, yes, I know that, but, you know, it kind of takes the fun out of it if you kind of go in prepared. I kind of wish I had gone in a little bit more prepared than I actually was, because the only thing was it was December. So whilst the weather was pleasant, it perhaps wasn't quite warm enough to be walking around a park when I'm absolutely drenched through. So we did end up having to cut short our little visit to Animal Kingdom that day. If memory serves me right, I think once I went back to the hotel and got changed, I think I did end up shopping at Disney Springs, or Downtown Disney as it was called then. So that would have been a win, wouldn't it, really?
Absolutely. I must admit there's a fair few times I've been on water rides and got soaked. But when we were in Disneyland last August, we went on the Matterhorn, and literally we went head first to a wall of water on the Matterhorn, and we got drenched, and I mean drenched. So I feel your pain, Jane. I feel your pain. Okay, this is going back to 2010, and this was my first Walt Disney World trip. And why is it insane? Because I thought I could go to Walt Disney World without doing any planning. Picture the scene. I have 3 children, and in 2010, Kieran was 10, as we know, ADHD and Asperger's. And then we have Emily, who has now been diagnosed as ADHD, which we knew back then, but they wouldn't diagnose her. And the girls were 13. 3 weeks in Walt Disney World doing everything, and I mean everything. We went to Tampa, we went to Busch Gardens, we went to SeaWorld, we went to Universal, and we even paid out of pocket for the dining plan. So all I am saying on this is, oh my word, how I learnt from that trip, because I thought, I need to bring clothes to wear for the going out for dinner on an evening. I didn't realise it was like theme park, shorts and t-shirt. So we had some quite horrendous dealings with that. And I'm sure you'll all remember when I've spoken fondly about where we stayed at the Dolphin, where we went in and we only had 2 beds and there were 5 of us.
Yes,
They
I
were
do
putting
remember that.
Kieran in a reclining chair, and there was literally not enough room for us to unpack our 5 suitcases or even put a pair of shoes on the carpet. The room was so tiny. So, yeah, that was quite a don't do this. Absolutely bonkers. Don't. And I think you, Jane, have got a booking dilemma of your own.
Oh, bless. Yeah. So we have booked. We're going to Disney on a Disney cruise again later on in the year in September, and we are booking with a non-Disney person. Is all I shall say. And yes, I'm entering into the conversation, which I know a lot of us Disney park nerds have entered into many a time, of, oh, Disney's just for kids, isn't it? And it's like, oh, how? Please tell me. Anybody got any tips for how do you explain to somebody that has not been to a Disney park before that it's not just for kids? That it's not what they have in their head that they think it's going to be. And particularly with going on a cruise, there is this element of, a vacation on a cruise vacation can be as much Disney or as little Disney as you actually want. So it's one thing, it's doing my head in a bit. It's a challenge for me. That's how we're going to look at it, isn't it? It's a challenge for me.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge. So there's moments where I'm thinking, oh, what have I done? And then there's other moments I think, no, be calm. It'll be fine. It'll be all okay. So I'll let you know about the 10th of September how it went.
Oh, Jane. Do you know what? I've got lots more on my list, and I know you have from reading the show notes. Let's continue this on a podcast 498 after show for our Patreon supporters and finish it off here. So, guys, thank you for listening in. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to listen to a bit more, go to patreon.com/Disney Dream Girls. You can catch us on Instagram @DisDreamGirls. And you can also join our Disney Dream Girls podcast family page over on that there Facebook. But until next week, it's a goodbye from me.
And bye from me.